Penn State fans, Bob Flounders here with Max Ralph. We're recording this Monday. It's 2 o'clock. It is freezing cold in Harrisburg. Max, by the transitive property, I know that if it's cold in Harrisburg, it's pretty much a guarantee it might be colder in State College. But that's life in November. It's Big Ten football weather. We actually saw some real good Big Ten football on Saturday. See what I did there, Penn State fans? That was an outstanding game. Penn State came up short, but it's an effort they can build upon. You know, there's some lessons in there, but one of the better games I've seen at Penn State, especially from an opponent that had to win a game in a very difficult, challenging environment. And hats off to them that they did. I know Penn State fans, Max, are convinced that they lost because it was something they didn't do. I think sometimes you got to give the other guy a ton of credit, and I think that is in play here, especially with the way that IU offense, managed that last possession that got them a touchdown. Incredible work by the quarterback. Incredible work by the wideouts. But Max, we're pressing on here. We got 3 games left for Penn State in the regular season. Beginning with a trip to East Lansing, Michigan. It is Penn State at Michigan State in a battle of winless Big Ten teams. I still can't believe I'm saying this as we get later into the season. Max, how are you, and what struck you the most about Terry Smith's presser today?
Yeah, Bob, I've been a little better, I'll be honest. I broke out the winter coat for the first time today, which is never a fun thing. We had some snow showers. Avid watchers of the podcast on YouTube will recognize that I'm in front of a different background right now, and that is because I woke up to a leaky pipe this morning, and they're drying out my carpet on the other side of the apartment. So, a double whammy this morning, but we're here. We're getting this done. I love your point about, look, sometimes the other guy just wins the game, Those 2 catches by Omar Cooper and Charlie Becker, not to mention some of the throws throughout the entire day that Fernando Mendoza made, like while he's being dragged to the ground, You really just have to tip your cap. And I think it'd be fair to be a little more annoyed with Penn State, the failure to get the first down near midfield in the fourth quarter, and then using the timeout in a bit of an odd way on the very final drive. It'd be fair to be a little more upset with those things if the context of the season didn't exist, where they played a great football game and whether they won or lost didn't really change what's going on here a whole lot. I think you have to be pretty pleased with the outcome, or at least with the effort that's put in, not the outcome. And I think you have to be pretty pleased that there are a few young guys who really stepped up and looked good. And while you can't guarantee if they'll be here next year, you're pretty happy with the prospect that they might be. And I'm thinking of Darius Dixon, Yvonne Kamaju, Alex Tash, Kobe Howard. There are a couple throughout there. And here's the big one. When you ask me what stood out from Terry's press conference, this is where I want to go. It's Ethan Grunkemeyer, the quarterback. Pretty bold words for Terry Smith, who said, we have a quarterback for the future here. And you asked him about him. I asked him about their relationship and how they've grown. I just think Ethan Grunkemeyer grew up, as Terry Smith said. I think I've been really impressed with his leadership for this team. And now we can say all those other things were great. Now he played a really good game against a tough Indiana team. He's starting to put all the pieces together, and it's really impressive.
Agree, Max. He is taking a leadership role in his second year. It's clear to me on the field. And I'll tell you what, for the rest of his time in college, no matter if he's at Penn State or if he's somewhere else, I can almost guarantee you he will never, in his time, face a more difficult challenge than the one he just went through with those 3 games to begin his career as a Penn State starter at Iowa. I don't care that. I mean, they're not a fun team to watch. They are no fun to play in that environment. Good teams go there to die at Kinnick Stadium. And Oregon barely survived over the weekend. Indiana barely survived. Penn State had their chances to win that game in his first career start. He survived it too. Then he goes to Ohio State, which is the best team in the country right now. Then they get Iowa. They get Iowa at home. It's never going to get much harder. I don't think it will get harder ever for Ethan for the rest of his career. And the way that he responded in the second half after he threw that pick speaks volumes about his growth physically and mentally. And Max, before I toss it to you, I also think what fans, maybe some fans don't really realize this, but after the game, he came out to meet with the media, and he had a statement he wanted to read for a pretty large group of media. There was a lot of talk last week in some circles about maybe the Wednesday availability that the media had. There wasn't a lot of buzz, or there wasn't a lot of energy, and I don't think Terry Smith was thrilled about it, and he kind of talked a little bit about it after the game. And Ethan made a comment, and he didn't really reference that, but he wanted to make it clear that everyone on that team was focused and determined, and there's not any quit. And for a kid in his second year to do that, I don't know that many first year starting quarterbacks as redshirt freshmen kind of have the stones to do that. And I think that shows a lot about him, because it's not just physically what you have to do to be a quarterback at a major college; it's mentally as well. I think he is accelerating his development, and I think it's a great sign. Penn State fans should be hopeful that he will be the quarterback in 2026, and we're going to wait and see how that plays out. But I could not be more impressed with him in the last few days.
Yeah, I'm absolutely right there with you. That gumption to come out and give that statement after a loss like that, and the way he delivered it, he's 100% within his right to do that, and gave a good statement defending his team. He's earning a lot of bonus points by doing that, and with his play with the next head coach, whoever's here. Financials, transfer portal, depending on who's out there, all those different things play a factor. But this kid's doing a lot of really good things, and he definitely showed he can make a few big time throws on Saturday. I don't want to dunk on people saying that the energy at practice was down, because I was there too, and I would agree with them. It really was not anything special during what we saw on Wednesday. But what Terry Smith said, and I believe him and have every reason to believe him, is that we just saw the down portion of practice. They went and had other intense periods that went really well, and obviously they came out and backed it up on Saturday. And that's kind of all of what we're talking about here, is why I followed up on your question about Grunk, because Terry, like I said, in no uncertain terms, said we have a quarterback for the future. If Terry Smith was here long term as the head coach, which I don't really think is going to happen, but if he was, it sounds like he'd be pretty comfortable rolling Ethan Grunkemeyer out there as his guy. And so I followed up and I said, look, you two are both in this situation where we heard so long from James Franklin and Drew Aller about kind of the marriage between a head coach and a quarterback at a university like this. They are the faces of this team and the faces of having to come out and speak to the media every week. And so I said, Terry, you mentioned that Ethan could be the quarterback for the future here. How has your relationship with him grown on this? Because you're both facing so much uncertainty, doing commendable jobs to this point. How do you do this? And he said, yeah, we've grown a ton. We're kind of going through this together. I've been really impressed with the way that he's grown. I can't wait to see him keep growing. And I think that Terry Smith has been as good as you could have asked, and Ethan Grunkemeyer is right there alongside him. One of the things with Grunk, too, that I just, along with giving that statement, he's made mention of it, and you hear it from other teammates, just how close he is with all of the players on the offensive side. He's done a really good job of reaching out and taking that role. He said he gets dinner with Trevor Pena every week, and I assume with other receivers, too. But he said specifically with Pena because he had the big game on Saturday. We know he lifted with Devontae Ross and is close with him and all offseason. Obviously, he's got a connection with Kobe Howard. Like, he's clearly a very personable guy in the locker room, and really a big, big winner from Saturday's game and Monday's press conference with Terry Smith.
Yep, Max, and you know what? We're talking about Terry Smith and kind of like how you could tell he is very, I think, pleased with Ethan Grunkemeyer. And I think if you're a Penn State fan, you're like, well, he's gonna, he's protecting his guy. Well, if you're a Penn State fan, I think you should also take this to heart. Kurt Signetti had some pretty nice things to say about Ethan Grunkemeyer after the game. I'm just going to read the quote. I was I was kind of just stalling a little bit so I could pull it up.
Yeah.
He said, this is just part of his. He was very excited to win this game. I think he basically said he didn't think they had any shot when they got down to the last drive. But he was talking about his team, and this is what he said. Now, the tape tomorrow will give me a lot of things we won't be proud of, but Penn State's a good football team, and maybe they found their quarterback too, a guy that can lead them to more wins the rest of the season here. Kurt Cignetti does not throw too many compliments around when it comes to the other team, and I just think for him he volunteered that. He wasn't even really asked about Ethan Grunkemeyer.
Yeah.
So I think he can see it too. So two things. It's great that Penn State's getting a quarterback who is growing up, with his feet to the fire and making some plays. You can say what you want about his cast at wideout. A couple players finally answered the call. Trevor Pena being one of them. A couple players did not, but Kobe Howard again continued to make plays. Something to be excited about. But look, not only is Penn State excited about Ethan Grunkemeyer, but I think, there's some teams that if he is looking around are going to be excited about maybe this kid too. So it's kind of a win-lose a little bit because be careful what you wish for as he grows up in front of us. Some other people are aware too, but I think it's a good problem to have, right? There's going to be competition everywhere. He's shown now, I think, especially given what he did against Ohio State and Iowa. The numbers weren't great. He didn't have a lot of help. He's shown, though, if you call a good game around him, you give him time to throw, he can make plays. And it's very encouraging. They have a very, very winnable game at Michigan State this weekend as they talk about trying to end a 6-game losing streak. And I think it's become must-watch football if you're a Penn State fan. For me, I think just watching how he plays and also – you mentioned some young players, Kobe Howard being one of them, but there's some really exciting players on the defensive side too. So, even though it's not going to be a winning season, I would still keep a close eye to the TV set on Saturday and the last couple of games.
Yep, absolutely. And the most impressive part too about Grunk is he threw that interception coming right out of the second half, and it was ugly. He looked like he not only threw it into multiple defenders, but also missed the throw. It was not good. It was a bad start, and then he came back and he completed. You had the numbers in a story today. I think it was 10 for 12 passes, or something along those lines. I should pull them up.
There were some throws at the end of the game where it was challenging to complete the ball, and he was trying to make plays down the field. But when it was a game and they had the lead, or where they were trying to overcome the lead, he did not miss after the interception. He didn't miss much, and he also spread the ball around.
Yeah, he did. And the touchdown to Nick Singleton, a few of those throws he made down the field were really layered well between some zone coverage.
The one to Howard too.
Yeah, the guy just really showed up, and I think I anticipate he'll keep doing that this week. Look, it's uncertain. That's the best way to do it. Terry Smith was asked if he started having these conversations with players about the transfer portal, and he said, "Yeah, I've started with a few of them." The consensus is it's wait and see right now. See if the next coach wants them, if they fit in his scheme. That's where they're at. And Terry Smith's the same way. He was asked again, would you want to stay here even if it's not in a coaching role, maybe as a GM or something else? I think Terry Smith would absolutely be interested in that. He said he would examine every opportunity. And let me tell you, the vibe, the feel of his press conference today, even the feel of the media room after the loss, it's just so much more positive than it was 2-3 weeks ago.
They went down swinging, man.
They did, and that's all you can really ask for at this point.
They didn't really do that against Ohio State.
No.
You know what I mean? The second half, they just kind of, Ohio State made a bold move to start the third quarter, and I thought they went kind of quietly, and maybe it was because they were back home. Maybe it was, Indiana maybe took them a little bit for granted, and they were without a really good player, their wideout. But they got down 20-7. And I thought it was going to be. I actually thought it would be like 38-7 after that, or whatever. 41. I thought that's usually what Indiana does, right? Once they get you down, they kind of rub your nose in it, and teams kind of go very quiet. That did not happen. It's a great sign. This team played very, very hard. I still marvel at some of the plays that Mendoza kid made when he was getting pulverized. The amount of hits that he took in that game, if you look at the stat sheet, it really doesn't do justice. Literally every time, and he was running the ball too, right? he took a lot of punishment, and he did not look the worse for wear in the post game interview. That kid's really talented, and I mean, Kurt Cignetti knows how to pick his quarterbacks. He's got another good one, and it was just one of the best Penn State games I've seen. And I know they didn't win the game, but they still really, really played well, I thought.
They did. They're playing for Terry Smith. They played their butts off, and Terry Smith has also made the changes that he kind of promised.
Yeah.
It took a couple weeks to get there, but they threw the ball down the field this week. The defense has become a little more simplified. Guys are playing fast. Jim Knowles made some really nice blitz calls, and the secondary, the rotation was a little different. You can't tell me Terry Smith's hands weren't all over those changes. I think he's done a really, really nice job in this role, understanding the situation that Penn State is in, not trying to do too much, but doing just enough to keep these guys focused. I don't think he'll be the next head coach at Penn State University, but I do think it would be a massive mistake on Pat Kraft's part and whoever the next head coach is if Terry Smith is not involved on this staff moving forward, because he just, as a former captain, a letterman, he really does bleed Penn State, and the way that the job that he's done right now has been unbelievably impressive.
Yeah. So we're here on the Blue White Breakdown. It's Monday ahead of Penn State at Michigan State on Saturday afternoon in lovely East Lansing. We're talking about, and Terry Smith talked about it, we're talking about it. What really changed for Penn State in the second half was the explosive play, return to the offense. And there's a couple points I want to get to with you. One is, Terry said it twice. He said it after the game, and he said it in his press conference. And these aren't the exact words, but he said, what happened? What was different? And he said we called vertical plays. Now, it's just not that easy. That can't be the whole explanation, but he said it twice, so we're going to take him at his word. But Max, one of the things that happened when they started to hit Trevor Pena across the middle, when they got the ball to Kobe Howard, is it loosened up the defense. And guess who returned to his pre-2025 form, because that's the only way I know how to put it. This was the guy we saw at the end of 2024. This is the guy we saw as a true freshman in 2022. Nick Singleton had a 59-yard run in the second half. He caught a 19-yard touchdown pass. I thought, Terry talked about those plays kind of opening up things for the run game. I also thought, I swear, Nick had a little bit more spring in his step. Maybe he was just tired of reading about what he wasn't doing right. But that looked pretty much like the guy we saw during Penn State's playoff run. And I didn't feel like we saw it much before this past Saturday.
Yeah, it's a difficult conversation, right? Because is it really that simple? You just had to call the plays? As you and I have talked about, Andy Kotelnicki's not stupid. In fact, he's a pretty intelligent guy, and I've been impressed for most of his tenure at Penn State, and every chance I've gotten to talk to him that, he's a smart guy. He understands offense. But for whatever reason, the first 8 weeks of this year just were not good, and he owns a big part of that. And when he talked to us in the bye week, he didn't really inspire a whole lot of confidence in the way he spoke. It was weird, but whatever it is, if Terry Smith got on him, if Andy just flipped a switch, I don't know how it worked. We're not behind those conversations in the halftime locker room, but if they really just had to call the plays, good, do it some more, because it worked. And I asked Nick Singleton about the very thing you're talking about, hey, how much did having success throwing the ball help you? He said, teams have been loading the box against us big time. They're trying to stop the run. And the fact that Grunk was so good, being able to get down the field, is the reason why I had a 59-yard run that turned into a touchdown. He straight up said that directly impacted his ability to crease the defense like that. He absolutely had the burst of speed back that we've always seen with him. But Andy Kotelnicki as well did a nice job of, his plays came on the edge. That touchdown pass was a nice little outlet with some blockers in front of him. Those are the ways that Nick Singleton can impact the game for you. And we saw them. And it's hard to believe that it really is as simple as just saying, okay, call the good plays. Like that sounds way too oversimplified, but that's kind of what Terry Smith said and why it worked better.
Yeah, Max, you know what, as I think about what I was listening to you and what you said, it could be almost as simple as this, and maybe there's an element of truth in this. It could be that Penn State was slow to make the adjustment that, look, given the personnel we have this year, we need to stretch the field to open up the run game. Last year they had Tyler Warren, and as much as defenses wanted to gang up on the run game, if you did that, Max, you knew you were going to single up Tyler Warren in the passing game, and if they protected Drew, much like in the USC game, he was going to eat somebody alive because he's too athletic and too big for a corner to hang with him. And if you put a safety or a linebacker on him, he's just gonna, he's just physically, and he's too quick. And they didn't have that this year, and maybe that is what Terry is saying. Look, we have to throw it, and if we have a little bit of success, once we start to have it, if we can just complete one or two passes more than 15 yards down the field, something that Terry said they could not do at Iowa. If we can just do that, it's gonna force defenses to adjust. Last year, we had Tyler Warren, and we could run the ball when we wanted to run the ball because they couldn't really gang up and say, we're just going to not let you run the ball, because then Tyler Warren catches 10 passes for 180 yards and a touchdown. He did it against Bowling Green. He did it against USC. Whatever they needed that kid, he made the plays. And maybe that is kind of what is being hinted at here. They just had to commit to, look, we're going to do this. I don't care if it doesn't work. We're going to keep doing it. The minute we complete a couple of them, it's going to change everything.
I think that's honestly kind of why we saw the interception at the start of the second half for Ethan Grunkemeyer, because they had two plays on offense, and the first one was a deep shot that was I'm sorry, I think it was covered or he just missed the throw.
Yeah.
But then the next one was he tried to fit this into a tight window. I genuinely think it was as simple as, okay, we're in the halftime locker room, throw the freaking ball down the field. And they might have gotten a little bit too into the weeds on that first drive, and Grunk had it in his head. But then they did it all through the rest of the second half. And that's how, I said it in our post-game video, Bob, after the game. I really think if this team plays like they did on Saturday, they're going to win out and be eligible for a bowl game if they want it. I think they are the better team in their final three games.
Yeah, a lot of things are going to have to go their way to win three in a row, because it was a struggle. Well, I don't really count that 3-game winning streak to start the season because of the competition. It's kind of hard to say, oh yeah, this is what they did right. It wasn't so much what they did right; it was who they were playing. Right, those teams were all just not very good. Now this is going to be a little bit challenging. You're right. I saw Nebraska did win. They're coming in here. They have a backup quarterback. Very interesting game. Even though Rutgers is still kind of Rutgers, to win that game. At the end of the season, you don't know about the health of this team or the Rutgers team after the next couple of weeks. But really, Max, it's probably not a great idea for us to look too far ahead, because we really saw, Max. We saw Penn State string 2 good quarters together against Indiana. It was not 4 good quarters. It was 2. So I think it's baby steps. Can they play a good 4 quarters against a Big Ten team? It has not happened yet this year. Once that happens, if they can do it against Michigan State, then I think I'm like, all right, this team can finish 6-6.
I'll agree, but I will say I thought the defense played 4 good quarters against Indiana, and the offense just needed a little time. I think this defense is really starting to figure it out, because that was a really impressive performance, and that's against a really good Indiana offense too. We'll see. I should not speak in absolutes, but I'm ready to get dunked on for a take, and I think Penn State wins out.
Okay. If I was going to say, what are the odds that Penn State wins its final 3 games? Would it be 50-50, or I'm 75% sure they will? I would say 50-50. It's 50-50 for me. I can't say that I'm more confident they will that they won't, but I really just think, after what we just saw the last few weeks, given that they're going to go to Michigan State. Look, Michigan State's an interesting team only because you can score a lot of points on Michigan State if the weather's good. They are not very good defensively, but they just made a quarterback change. They can do some things on offense. So it's a road game for Penn State, and sometimes, as we learned, like in the UCLA game, they just do not always show up the same way on the road. But this is a game that of the three games, Max, I would say for sure that in my mind this is the most winnable game, even though
Oh
it's on the
yeah,
road.
easily.
I think though, I just want to see, do they start fast? Do they limit their mistakes? Do they continue to do what they did in the second half of this game? I need to see that for 60 minutes. And it's been one thing or another that's hurt this team in the second halves of games. That's why I say it's not a full. I haven't seen them play a full 60 minutes now. So it's offense, defense, and it's special teams. I thought special teams. There were a couple plays in that game, including the punt, the 63-yard punt that landed for a touchback. Penn State has no room for error given the way that they are assembled. You just can't make mistakes in any phase of the game and expect to win. So I think it's fascinating to see. I'm really curious to see. Can they go into Michigan State and beat them by 2 touchdowns? I'm curious to see if they can, or is it going to be a nail biter, or are they going to lose? I just don't know what the game flow is going to be like, but they should be fully confident after what they just did in the second half against Indiana.
That's where I'm at too, and I think it's one of those situations where it's almost like a shooter in basketball. Like once you see one go in, you turn around and do a whole different level of confidence, and they might just need to see a win at this point, especially coming off of that game where they had it so close in what would have been just a massive upset. So
Yeah.
we'll see, but I like their chances this weekend, and I think we'll learn a lot more about this team throughout the week as we get to talk to players and we get to see a little bit of practice. But I think there's a lot of reason for positivity in Happy Valley right now.
Okay, Max, before we get out of here on the Blue-White Breakdown, and Max and Johnny will be back on Thursday to do a live Blue-White Breakdown podcast. Max, before we get out of here, let's just talk about a couple of updates regarding personnel, whether it's health-wise or whatever. But there were a couple changes to the lineup against Indiana. Nolan Rucci, who did not start against Ohio State, was back at right tackle. TJ Shanahan, who was the starting guard against Ohio State and also against Iowa because they didn't have Venga, he was out of the lineup. Donko was back at right guard. There's some news on the offensive line. Also, I think this was a bigger loss than we thought it would be at the start of the Indiana game. They could have used Chaz Coleman, I think, in the second half for the pass rush. He was not available, and Terry didn't really come out and say that he was definitely going to be back anytime soon. I think he used the words day-to-day. But what else do you have, Max?
Yeah, those are the two big ones, day-to-day for Coleman and hopeful for this weekend. But Shanahan was such an interesting one because this was a guy who was kind of the sixth man up front for pretty much the whole season.
Yeah.
Earned the start at Ohio State in a fairly big shakeup because Nolan Rucci had been the starter for quite some time, and last year played really well. And so it was a pretty big shakeup, and then he comes out and he's just not even involved, which was weird. He did play on special teams, but not at all on offense. And Cooper Cousins took 14 snaps and heavy packages. Yeah. We even saw Garrett Sexton, a redshirt freshman who we have not heard a ton from this season, got a snap over Shanahan. So I asked Terry about it today. I was like, hey, what the heck is up with this? Like, this is a little weird. And he said, even though Shanahan was not on the pregame availability report, he is a little banged up, was dealing with something that he could have played if they needed him, but they just wanted to keep him healthy and had some other options. So I guess he should be expected to be a factor moving forward. Because I also clarified, I was like, hey, did the depth chart change? Like, what happened here? And Terry Smith did not say that. He said TJ Shanahan's going to be involved going forward. So interesting.
I just wonder if Terry realizes maybe he should have phrased that differently because I think they're pretty serious about the availability report. And if there's any question about the kid's health, just looking as questionable, don't have him not on there and then say, well, he's been a little bit angry.
I'm with you, but he did play on special teams, so I guess they're probably legally fine with that. But he is officially banged up, and but I don't think there's any real concern about his availability moving forward.
Yep. One more thing before we get out of here, Max. And I do agree with him, even though maybe the numbers were you could see he was in the game, and you could see he has gotten better. Kimaju. he has made some significant
Oh, yeah.
strides, I think, as the season has unfolded. And Terry Albert said it, actually pretty much did say it, but that's a guy that they definitely, if he wants to be a Penn State Nittany Lion, he's going to be an impact player. Maybe not an impact player the rest of this season. He's more of a role player, but
Hmm.
as he continues to kind of get bigger, stronger, and more experienced, in 2026, I wouldn't want to try and block him on
No.
3rd and 1. Let's put it that way.
No, I think he's a really impressive kid. He's got great size coming off the edge. He's already shown some good things. Between him and Coleman coming off the edge, obviously, as we've talked about, Chaz still has to make some strides physically so that he can defend the run a little bit more.
Yeah.
But Kamaju's a little bigger. His growth needs to come in the pass rush. But both of them show really good stuff. And for a team that's losing Denied Dennis Sutton for sure and might be losing a whole heck of a lot of other people, they would be really nice to have around on that pass rush next year.
Okay, Max Ralph, that's a wrap for this Blue White Breakdown podcast. We got to run. Everyone stay warm if you're in Pennsylvania, and if you live in State College, you might want to double long john it because it's starting to be freezing now.
It is. It snowed today.
I'm not quite thrilled about it, but you know what? I'll get over it. Guys, don't forget, Thursday, Blue White Breakdown Live with Max Ralph, Johnny McGonigal. We have a lot of stuff coming this week on Penn State. I still have some thoughts I want to get to about Penn State, Indiana. I'm sure the fans are still talking about it, although maybe not in the way that we are. But Max, it's going to be a busy week for both of us. So thanks everyone for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you soon.